Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Alex can give me a thumbs up that you can hear me and see my screen. Perfect. Thanks so much for joining us today. As you might have seen, I am recording this session, so we will send it out afterwards if you would like to reference it again. We're really appreciative for having everyone join us today to learn a little bit more about finances for study abroad. Maybe you got to join one of the earlier information sessions that were pretty general and went very briefly over finances, but we're going to dig into that a little bit more today. I'm Alicia Cardwell. I'm the Director of Study Abroad here at the Brandeis Office of Study Abroad, and I'm also joined with Alex, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Alex. I'm a senior. I study in anthropology and Latin American studies, as well as an art history minor, and I studied abroad last spring in Rome, Italy.
And if you do have any questions as we go along, feel free to put them in the Q&A. We'll try and monitor that as we go through the session or get through as many as we can at the end. So in addition to Alex and I, we have the rest of the team of our advisors, so full-time staff in the office, and then 8 study abroad ambassadors who are returnees who have studied abroad like Alex. And all of us are here to help support students in many different ways throughout the study abroad process. I put here our entire mission. You might have seen it in the other presentation if you joined us earlier this week. But the part I wanted to highlight for this session particularly is that we believe and actively promote the notion that a student's identity, financial background, and/or academic discipline should not be a barrier to an educational experience abroad. So our goal is that if a student wants to study abroad, that we want to make that possible regardless of financial situation. So we work really hard to make study abroad accessible to any and all students who want it as an opportunity. So what we're going to go over today is summer study abroad billing, which then differs from if you're going abroad for a semester or a year. We'll talk about scholarships, and then the all-important question, how does financial aid work with study abroad? So to get started for summer study abroad, so any student that is earning academic credit outside of the United States over the summer goes on a study abroad program. For summer study abroad, and like I said, this is different than the semesters, so that's why we want to specifically highlight it here. These programs are usually 5 to 8 weeks, sometimes a little longer, but students will pay the cost of that program directly to the program itself, except for our Brandeis Run program. So we have 3 Brandeis Run programs in Copenhagen, Merida, and Siena. Those are all paid to Brandeis because they're Brandeis programs. Any program outside of that, and there's a list of about 50 approved programs, that payment would go directly to the program. So they would charge their tuition, their housing, their board. This cost really varies depending on the program, the location, how many credits is, the length of the program. You can see down at the bottom of the screen, the average summer program cost is between $8,000 and $9,000 for tuition and housing. That's pretty standard, but there's some that are less expensive and there's some that are more expensive. So it can really range. And then of course, on top of that, you have maybe meals aren't included in that, your flight, day-to-day living expenses. So in that sense, that cost can increase. For Brandeis, there is a $400 study abroad fee, not for our Brandeis Run programs, but for any other programs. And that's just paid directly to Brandeis, but that's the only cost that Brandeis charges during the summer. In terms of financial aid, so the financial aid section later is going to be applicable to semester or year programs because in the summer, financial aid typically does not transfer to summer programs. There's a few exceptions. If you receive a Pell Grant, that can partially apply to the summer programs. There are scholarships available. So I've written here scholarships like, we'll go over scholarships more too, but we can learn about Gilman, Fund for Education Abroad. There's a Stacker scholarship through the Brandeis Study Abroad office. Those are available for summer. They usually help somewhat with that, average $8,000 to $9,000 cost. A lot of times they don't cover all of it. So in that way, summer can be a little bit of a financial commitment. You are earning credit for the program, so we'll pre-approve all the credit for it. Between 4 and 8 credits, depending on the program. Okay, so we're going to transition now to semester and year study abroad and start with an overview of what fees you can expect. So there's kind of 3 categories or buckets of fees to be thinking about. 1 is charges by Brandeis. 2 would be any charges from your study abroad program. And then 3 is anything not included in that. So something that's not included in an actual bill that you're going to receive from someone. So first, the Brandeis bill. So when students study abroad, they do continue to pay Brandeis tuition. There's a few reasons for this. Largely, it allows us to still send financial aid with students while they're abroad, and enable students to be able to study abroad. Like I said, our access is a really important goal to us. So students continue to pay Brandeis tuition. So whether you are on campus or you on any program around the world, you pay that Brandeis tuition and the required student fee. The other charges are going to vary depending on the student's situation, but there might be an international sickness and accident insurance that we require if the program doesn't include it. And then if you normally receive the Brandeis student health insurance plan, you would still need to remain enrolled in this. If you're a student that's on a family plan, you can stay on that one. You don't have to sign up for the Brandeis one unless Brandeis requires it of you. So that's the Brandeis bill you can expect to receive. So that is going to be billed the same way at the same time as it always is. You're just not going to have any of those non-tuition costs on your bill. So you're not billed by housing by Brandeis. Instead, you're going to be billed by your program for any non-tuition expenses. So you're not paying tuition to the program at all. You're only paying for any non-tuition expenses that the program charges. Every program's a little different. The costs range as to what this is, but for most of them, it's going to be housing, and it's going to be any kind of maybe meal plan that the program has. Some have it, some don't. It's usually international insurance. It covers their orientation. So those are kind of the basic things that a study abroad programs bill would include. Those amounts, like I said, can really vary depending on the place. So as you can imagine, cost of living in two different places can be very different. So housing amounts can change. Some programs include more than others. So some might include housing and all meals, whereas other programs just include housing. So that's really going to range depending on it. And then most programs are going to ask you for a program deposit. Usually that's part of this overall fee, but it's just something to know that it comes up. I'm seeing the question right now about if a 529 plan covers room and board charges. My understanding is that this is usually up to your 529 plan provider, so you could check in with them. Sometimes they need certain paperwork from the program, so we could check with the program to see if that's something that they'll administer. For the tuition, it's going to be the same, so that's not a problem, but you might want to check about with your specific plan provider as to what they need for that semester. I've seen it work out before. Okay, so then we want to think about our third bucket of expenses is anything not included in those two bills that you're going to receive. So flights, books, there's passport and visa fees, local transportation while there, meals, personal expenses, getting your immunizations beforehand, and then just spending money. And all of this, again, is going to kind of depend on the place, the student. I always say, like, are you someone that likes to go out to eat very often, or are you someone that likes to cook at home? Those two costs are going to be very different, even within one of the same places. Most programs on their website will have an estimated budget for students. So that can be a starting point as to what average students have paid on their program in the past. Alex, I might ask you to jump in at this point and just talk about like what kind of costs you saw come up on your semester abroad. Was it more than you expected, less than you expected? What do you think?
Yeah, I really had no expectations going into my study abroad. I had a certain amount that I knew I wanted to spend while I was abroad, and I didn't want to go over the amount that I had saved for that. So what I kind of did, which is what people usually definitely suggested to me, was that for the first week and a half, 2 weeks, I kind of just said yes to everything. If people wanted to go out, I said yes. If people wanted to go to a museum or a movie, I just said yes. And after that 2 weeks, I had tracked everything that I had spent and saw, okay, this is the max that I should be spending a week. What is an actual budget that I can set for myself? And if I go out half the time and I cook in my dorm half the time, how will my fees rate like increase and decrease? And so that's kind of how I did it. And I just felt that cooking at home, I was able to. So cooking in my own dorm was much less expensive than going out all the time. Although in my place of study, which was Rome, food was a lot less expensive than going out and buying clothes and other things. So just knowing those things too helped me budget to what I needed to do and what I didn't need to do. And I think something that really helped me for the culture and not always having to spend to go out and see new places was that my study abroad program tried to offer as many free things as possible. And so I would be the first one to sign up for any experience that I could. And so I went on 2 free trips with my study abroad program and did a bunch of little like taste tests and different program things. And so if your program offers you that for your student like cohort, that would be something to take advantage of. They were really fun, they were well put together, and of course it helped me budget as well.
Thanks, Alex. I think that what we hear from a lot of students that what can really kind of rack up cost-wise is extra travel that someone wants to do. So, you know, especially hear from students that want to go to Europe and want to see a lot of different places. Even with budget airlines, you still have to, you know, stay somewhere while you're there and eat while you're there. And that's the sort of thing that can start to rack up. So really finding things to do within the city, exploring new things around the area, that can also be really rewarding experience.
Yeah, Alicia, just to point to that, I also felt that that was true. A lot of people in my program went every weekend somewhere else in Europe, and I kind of just tried to explore my own country. And exploring your own country is way less expensive, but you get to see a lot of new places as well. And some weekends I would also just stay in the city and see parts that are a little bit farther away during the week. And so that is a really good point to, if you can explore your own country, you know, 4 months is not even enough time to see your entire country. So take advantage of what is around you.
Thank you, Alex. And so then this is just to kind of show a comparison of cost of Brandeis. So a lot of times we get the question is, will study abroad be more expensive or less expensive than a semester at Brandeis? And the answer is that it's going to vary depending on the place. So, well, we pulled 2 examples here that are a little more on the extremes. Okay, so Copenhagen's known as being one of the most expensive cities to be in, whereas somewhere like the Yucatan in Mexico is much lower cost of living. So you can see here, and sorry, this one turned out a little blurry. I don't know why it's doing that. But in terms of the tuition and the student fees, as I mentioned before, you continue to pay Brandeis tuition. So same as whether you were abroad or back here on campus. Where these differences really come in are with the housing, meals, airfare cost. So what we did is we went through the websites of these programs, we looked at what they estimated in terms of all of the other expenses, and then you can see here the total cost for those non-tuition costs at being at Brandeis for room and board, which is based on, you know, everyone can do different housing, which comes with different costs at Brandeis. And I'm not in Department of Community Living, so I can't speak too much to all those costs, but we pulled a typical one for a sophomore residence hall and like a 12 meal plan. So that's the amounts that you're going to see there. And so then you can see what that looks like compared to these costs being abroad on these programs. So this program is one in Copenhagen. This is what the program estimates. And you'll see here that that does come out to be more expensive than being here at Brandeis, whereas being in Mexico comes out to be less expensive than being at Brandeis. Now, I always tell students that if you are looking at this and your dream program is to go to Copenhagen, we are here to help make that happen. So we'll talk about scholarships later, but we can individually talk about scholarships that are options. There's other ways to make up some of those costs. So I never want someone to come in and just say like, I can't do this because of finances. Let's talk about it. Let's see what we can figure out. Someone asked why the Brandeis costs differ between the 2 comparisons. I must have taken different housing options on campus, or it might have been pulled a different year. So sorry, I didn't notice that. And again, as I mentioned before, all of these programs that we pulled are usually on the program's websites. Okay, we're going to move along to scholarships now. Like I mentioned, scholarships are a great way to help with some of these extra costs to make study abroad feel more affordable, to help with travel expenses, and to make it accessible to everyone. So there are a lot of scholarships out there, both for summer and the semester. Some are specific to either of those terms. One of the first ones that's going to come up for everyone is the Brandeis Sacker Study Abroad Scholarship. So this is one that is provided by donor funds to Brandeis and is given to students who are studying abroad. There's different categories within the Sacker Study Abroad scholarships. So for example, there's one for students studying in Israel. There's one for humanities students. There's one that's very general that everyone is eligible for. Alex, I believe you applied for the Sacker scholarship, is that right?
Yeah, I did.
And that is part of the Brandeis Study Abroad application. So that deadline is coming up on March 1st. We've made it very easy this year. It's an additional question within the application. As long as you're receiving need-based aid, you are eligible for the scholarship. Outside of that, then, there's many scholarships that are also through other Brandeis departments. So, for example, there's the Eisenstadt grant that supports students going to Israel. There's a scholarship through the German department for students going to Germany. So there's some other Brandeis funds as well. Then there's also program scholarships and then more national scholarships. Program scholarships will come directly from the program, and they can really vary in range depending on the program. Some have merit and need-based, some are specific to students, some have specific donors that give them, some are for specific places. There's a range of these. Some programs give more scholarships than other. If someone's really concerned and they're weighing between two options, I might say, like, you know, this one usually has more scholarship funding than this program. So we can talk about those specifics if someone comes in for a meeting. And then there's national scholarships. So the Gilman Scholarship is an example of one of these. This is a national prestigious scholarship for students that receive a Pell Grant or are eligible to receive a Pell Grant, or dependents of an active duty military member. And this scholarship is up to $5,000 for funding, including the summer as well. So it can be really beneficial for students. Brandeis is actually one of the top producing Gilman scholars out of all of the institutions in the country. So it's something that we're really proud of, and something that we really help students through the process. So we'll review scholarship essays. We'll talk about different ways to strategize how to best make your application stand out. And so we'll do that with each of these scholarships. We send a lot of reminders. We want everyone to have as much information about the funding opportunities that are available as possible. You'll see this QR code. If you scan it, it'll take you to our website, and there's a whole list of outside scholarships. We are constantly updating this whenever we learn any new ones. And then, yeah, so Alex, anything else you have to say about scholarships? You apply to any others, or?
I applied to the fund for study abroad. I didn't end up getting it, but that's fine. I also applied through my own program to their scholarship and financial aid fund, and I was able to get a portion of funds from them as well. So I think that's always a good idea to see if your own program has funds to spare for you. And it might still be like a little small question at the end of an application or something, but it's always good to see those places and just apply to as many as you can.
Thank you. So I see a couple of questions about scholarships. Do current Brandeis scholarships apply to study abroad tuition, previously awarded academic scholarships? Oh, I see. So like merit scholarships or scholarships students received toward tuition at Brandeis? Yes, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the financial aid section. And are there any scholarships that are not need-based? There are. So a lot of times, as you can see here, programs will have some merit-based scholarships. I do like to be really transparent, so I do see them less often than I see need-based scholarships. But a lot of programs do have some merit ones. They do tend to be a little bit more competitive because there's, you know, less of them. Some of the ones through Brandeis, like the other Brandeis departments, are not based on need as well. There is one category of the SACR scholarship, the Helen Koh scholarship for students going to China, that is not based on need. Unfortunately, right now, students still can't go to China, but we're hoping for next year that China will be a possibility again. Okay, scholarship deadlines. So this is really important because we don't want anyone to miss scholarship deadlines, because a lot of them have very hard deadlines. If you miss it even by a day, they can't continue to accept applications because they've had so many. For anyone that's planning to go next fall for the full year or this coming summer, apply now, deadlines are approaching. So I mentioned the Fund for Education Abroad scholarship, Alex mentioned it as well. That one comes up as early as next week, the 14th or 17th. So that one's coming really soon. And so some of those program ones will start to come up. So fall academic year and summer, start applying now. Usually Fund for Education Abroad is one of the earliest ones. If you're planning on applying for spring 2024, There are some deadlines that come up now, like the Sacker Scholarship. It's part of your Brandeis application, so that's all already rolled into what you'll have to complete for the application. And then a lot of others those deadlines will come up more in the fall. So always keep an eye on that sheet. Again, we'll send out emails as reminders. We want to make sure that everyone has that information. Okay, so now let's talk about financial aid. Students who are approved to study abroad, like I mentioned, continue to pay their Brandeis tuition. That maintains their status as currently enrolled students. And because of this, most Brandeis financial aid is portable. And when I say most, it's the very, very vast majority of it. There's only a couple of scholarships that don't transfer over to study abroad, which I'll cover. So what financial aid can you bring? You can bring institutional scholarships and grants, need and merit-based aid. So I think this was the question before about previously awarded scholarships at Brandeis. Do those transfer over? Yes, they do. Examples of this would be Alumni and Friends, the Presidential Scholarship. I know there's the Humanities Scholarship. There's quite a few of these. Those can transfer over. The one thing to know is that, remember when we were looking back at those Yucatan Merida expenses in Mexico, and those costs were less than the cost of a Brandeis attendance? When that's the case, when programs are less expensive, those costs might be, those scholarships might be adjusted down because we can't award more aid than what it costs to actually go on a semester abroad. The other side to that is that if that program is more expensive, like that Copenhagen program, students can't be awarded more than what they receive at Brandeis for that program. So that's where we want to find scholarships for it. But what Student Financial Services will do is they will do a budget worksheet, and I'm going to go over that in a few, where you see the cost of tuition, the cost of the program, and then they'll factor in a student's aid. So any aid that they are receiving here on Brandeis, they'll look at what of that can transfer over to the study abroad semester. And that's available for, the tuition, and it can go for any aid you receive above and beyond tuition as well. So here's some other financial aid that you can bring. So federal and state scholarships, grants, and loans. It gives out some examples of this. We mentioned Pell Grant before, state scholarships, Gilbert grants. Loans, if they fulfill federal and private company requirements. So you'll see the ones listed here. I think we had the question at one point about parent direct loans. Those can apply for study abroad. So what will happen in a semester is that if you receive aid and loans that are above the cost of Brandeis tuition, your aid would cover the tuition here, and then the student would be eligible to receive a refund, which they can then get and use for their program expenses or for their other expenses. Student Financial Services is going to look at both program expenses and those other estimated costs. So flight, meals if they're not included, transportation, those different pieces that add up to the full semester or semester in this case that a student would go abroad. So there are a few scholarships that cannot go abroad with students. So if any of these look familiar to you and you want to talk about it more, you certainly can with us. The Malkin Scholarship, SLIFSTA Scholarship, and then there's a Wien Scholarship for student. That one just cannot exceed the Brandeis tuition charges. So Wien Scholars still can study abroad. It's still going to cover tuition. It just doesn't cover any of those non-tuition costs. So we could always talk through that with you if you wanted to talk more. And then if you do receive any VA benefits, the thing we like to point out is that only certain programs are eligible to have that aid count toward them. So it's usually universities abroad. There are options, but they're just more limited. So that's something we would need to talk through further as well. But most of these scholarships where the aid can't transfer, it's because they are designed for international students coming here to the US. And so the funding is to be here and to not go abroad to another place. Looking at question, if scholarships at Brandeis help cover room and board, would that transfer, or is it reduced to only cover tuition? It usually would help cover room and board costs as well. Like I said, the way something would be reduced is when those program expenses are less. So it can vary depending on the situation, but for the most cases. Okay, so this is a lot of information. There are some resources to help see what is my exact situation, how is my aid going to transfer for study abroad, and what's that look like for me, right? This is all very general at this point. So we have something called a budget worksheet, and I'm going to show you an example of it so we can go through that. There's some resources on the Study Abroad website, and then there's also advisors in student financial services. Budget worksheet, this is found in your Brandeis Study Abroad application. So once you open your application, you'll find this there. There's also other ways to access it. So if you're like, I'd like to do this and I haven't even started an application yet, let us know. We can help get you a copy of it. What it's going to do is it automatically pulls up the cost of Brandeis tuition. So you have that there. And then all the rest of the categories are ones that you can fill in. So you would go then to the program's website and pull those non-tuition costs and add those in under your housing, your meals, anything that's required then by the program will be added in here. There's then a section where you can pull your financial aid information and put it in. Now for that part, I usually think it's a good idea and would recommend this to anyone planning to study abroad that receives financial aid to meet with your financial aid advisor. And what they'll do is they'll go over this budget worksheet with you. They'll look at that aid and they'll see exactly what of your aid transfers over, if there's anything we need to know about, and see if you're eligible for one of those refunds, how much that could be, and how that's going to apply to a program. Right now, when they're doing those, they're doing them based off of this year's financial aid information. So just know that it could change with next year, and they could talk to you a little bit more about, how to know if that's going to change or not. It has to do with, the FAFSA that you file and the income that whoever is doing that for you has made. So right now it would be based off of this year's. Alex, did you ever do a budget sheet? Was it helpful?
I did. It was helpful, and I did one in the study abroad application, and I also went to financial aid to have them help me sort some of the places I couldn't fill in myself. So it is definitely helpful to do both things, and the financial aid officers are super helpful and super nice, and will continuously check in with you once you see them. So.
And at this point of the process, if you're still researching programs or have just gotten started and you want to do this for multiple programs, absolutely. We can do that for different options. Student Financial Services can, and see at the end of the day, what are those overall costs and are they very different between those two? Student Financial Services can also give you what's called an outside scholarship eligibility number. And that's always important to get because that will tell you how much an outside scholarship you can earn before it starts impacting your Brandeis aid, right? So if you earn too much in scholarships, you can't get more aid than what that cost of the program is. And so at that point, it would start taking your Brandeis aid down, and we don't need that to happen. You already have that aid. But sometimes those extra scholarships can help cover loans. So that can be a nice benefit to some of these study abroad scholarships. They might take out loans that you otherwise would have had to take out. So first resource would be work through a budget worksheet. Our office is happy to help start these, but it's usually the actual financial aid piece that we would transition someone over to Student Financial Services because they have information or they have access to all that information, whereas we don't. However, if a student does one of these and they still have some questions about it or want to talk it through and you've got it all completed by Student Financial Services, we can come back and chat about it as well. There is also, I didn't go through this all in this session, but on our website here, which this QR code will scan and link you to, does go to a budget planning worksheet video that I recorded that goes through more step-by-step of the actual budget worksheet, where you can find it, how to fill it out, how to look for where your aid is in your Workday account, and all the steps then that you could help compile that budget worksheet. Here's the list of the different Student Financial Services advisors. So again, we encourage you all to meet with them if you receive financial aid. I never want finances to be a big shock later in the process or be on different pages about what it looks like. So if there are ever any questions, we work with the advisors there very closely. We're always happy to help jump on a call with them. I've done calls jointly, meetings jointly between them, the student, and myself. So we want to make this process as easy as possible. Next steps on our end then is meeting with us and financial aid advisors. You can do that now. I always recommend early is better, but can also do that as you go through the process, whatever is most comfortable to you. Begin research and applying for those scholarships, especially if you're going abroad are planning to go abroad in the summer, fall, or academic year. And then the big thing is not missing the study abroad deadline. So if you want to go abroad this summer, fall, or spring, making sure you apply by March 1st. And you can see here the advisors in our office, we do an alpha split, but we're always happy to help meet with anyone who wants to meet with any of us. Alex, do you have any last financial tips you would like to give?
I don't have any. I'm sure I have some in the back of my mind. So if you want to reach out to me, I did apply to a bunch of different scholarships. I can read over any like essays that you have. Same with the application itself. All of our study abroad ambassadors will read over your application. So don't feel free to reach out to us. Don't feel scared to. But yeah, we're here to help. And any tips that I have that I actually implemented when I was abroad, you can also reach out to me for that. I'm sure our other ambassadors also have tips. But yeah, I would say just be on top of it, be on top of the deadlines. And the sooner you go to financial services, I felt the more at ease I felt about going abroad and my ability to.
Thanks, Alex. And I think that I'll just close this part by saying that I mentioned before how one of the priorities in our office is to make study abroad accessible to all. We take that very seriously. Anyone who comes through our door that wants to make it happen, we want to do anything we can to make study abroad possible. I also like to be really realistic about it. If someone's coming in and they want to do X, and it's, we're going to need to piece together a lot of things. I'm here to help with it, but let's go through what it actually means, or let's actually look at what this budget is. How comfortable to you does that feel? So we're here to support as much as we need to along the way, and want to have everyone feel really excited about going abroad and not to be stressed about money. Being abroad is about exploring and seeing things, and we don't want finances to hold anyone back. So I'm happy to answer any other questions if you want to put them in the Q&A. I think I answered this one that had come in earlier about academic scholarships applying to tuition, Dean Scholarship specifically. Dean Scholarship isn't one that I know of that doesn't apply, so I assume that it does. I just don't know of that one directly, but Student Financial Services could confirm that that one applies. It should. Usually if I don't know about it, it's fine to transfer to study abroad. Okay, another question is, are you aware of scholarships for certain majors or areas of study, specifically students studying education, elementary education, or bilingual teaching? I don't know of too many that are area specific. I did see one today that I was looking at of a program in the summer and the semester that was specifically for education students, actually. So it's rare that I see those, but I did see one today for a program, but it was for a specific program and less general to anyone going. Now there would be like the ones that students studying German, the German department has some funding. So you can see those occasionally, but not as common. And yes, I will be sharing the recording with anyone who has registered for the session. So we'll share this out. Okay, next question for spring semester abroad. Does the spring bill get processed through Brandeis as it normally does? Yes, spring, fall, or full academic year. The Brandeis bill is processed as it usually is. So that bill will come at the same time, be due at the same time it usually is. You pay it in the same way. If you have any questions about kind of those actual payments, you can talk to Student Financial Services, but all of that would remain the same for that tuition cost. Now the programs, on the other hand, for the program bill, that's what can vary. So program bills can come at different times, be due at different times, and can be paid in different ways. So for some, you might have to physically send a check somewhere or do a wire transfer, but the program would give you all of those details. Advisors in our office are available if you do have any other questions, especially as you're going through this process. So you can always call or email us, and we're more than happy to help or schedule an appointment with us. All the information's on our website. I want to thank everyone for coming today. I want to thank Alex for joining us and giving us your tips. And please do reach out if we can help with anything.